Welcome, everyone. I'm Pete Rizzo, editor-at-large at Kraken, the best place to buy and sell Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and I'm your host for this special edition 2021 Crypto Market Outlook webinar. Thanks for joining. To discuss the biggest topics from the year that was and the year ahead, I'm joined by an all-star trio of Kraken experts, including head of OTC trading, Nelson Minier, lead Bitcoin strategist, Pierre Rochard, and Chief Legal Officer, Marco Santori. Nelson, Pierre, and Marco will be joining us shortly to discuss their outlook on the market. But first, some data highlights from our latest Kraken Crypto Sentiment Survey, available to download now at blog.kraken.com. We surveyed 350 Kraken VIP traders in Q4 to get their thoughts on 2021. Here are their top takeaways. Bull fever. 66% of respondents believe that crypto assets are now in a bull market. This was up from the 44% observed in our survey at the end of Q2. Big predictions. The average price target given by respondents was $36,000 for Bitcoin and $1,400 for Ether, suggesting again our survey takers have a bullish outlook on asset prices for 2021. Last but not least, DeFi rising. Tokens for decentralized finance protocols are attracting interest, with Link, Yearn, and Uniswap among the most well-known coins. Yet 93% of respondents said they had not taken out a loan from a DeFi protocol, and 76% said they had not lent coins to a DeFi protocol. Once again, you can read our full crypto sentiment survey on kraken.com and access more free Kraken intelligence on blog.kraken.com. Now our guests, welcome Marco, Nelson, and Pierre. Unmute yourself, guys. Welcome to the webinar. How are you doing?
Very well, Pete. Thanks for having us.
All right, well, let's dive in. Once again, if you're listening, we thank you for that. And you can ask questions. Just type them into the Q&A in the chat. We'll be taking the best ones and posing them to our panel. Guys, Bitcoin, $23,000 today. We're going to start with market and macro as the subjects. First question to the floor. Why did the outlook traditional investors have for Bitcoin change this year? What's different? Who wants to take it?
I could take that one. I think that, it's one of these things that we all been waiting for, institutional investors coming in. And I think Paul Tudor Jones coming in mid-year, Michael Saylor coming in and putting some of his company's resources into Bitcoin, and all the talk he's been on all the podcasts talking about it. I think that puts gives a lot of credence to Bitcoin. And then finally, I think the biggest of them all was MassFi. MassFi is one of these traditional white shoe, $500 billion money manager that's been around for 100 years. Mm-hmm. And, and these guys are competing for assets, and, a few basis points here or there makes a difference. If MassFi starts to do very well because of Bitcoin, and obviously with the investment that they had, I don't know how, it's a small fraction of the portfolio, but they'll get a few basis points out of it. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to lead the way. I think that's going to, this is not your fake internet money anymore. This is legit. And I think MassFi is kind of, for me, that's been the biggest one of them all.
Sure, I agree. That's what happened. Definitely, people are waking up. But Pierre, what's changed? Why are we seeing this difference?
I think there's obviously two parts to any market: supply and demand. So on the supply side, with the Bitcoin halving, I think that there's a clear tailwind there, which brought really Bitcoin into a competitive mode with gold, where now Bitcoin is arguably a scarcer asset than gold itself. And then on the demand side, I really think that the monetary response to the COVID crisis caused a lot of folks, just like the crisis of 2008, to re-examine the system and to question the fundamentals and to rethink what's going on. So in 2008, we saw that with the rise of Occupy Wall Street, and we also saw it with Dodd-Frank from a legal perspective. And there was no Bitcoin, right, in 2008. But some people say that it prompted Satoshi to release Bitcoin. I think that was more coincidence than, causal mechanism. But today we do have Bitcoin. So I think that as we do some soul searching in the face of unprecedented monetary intervention, that macro investors and large asset allocators are really open-minded and want to understand Bitcoin before making a decision, yes or no. And I'm confident that as they come to understand Bitcoin better, their decision to allocate to it will be a yes.
Marco, Pierre mentioned the legal environment, obviously invoking the financial crisis. Obviously yourself, many years of legal experience within the emerging cryptocurrency fields. What's changed this year?
I think one of the really impressive things that we've seen from governments around the world is that very little has changed. And there's this sort of sense of impending doom, which is sometimes warranted around crypto regulations. But one of the more impressive developments over the last few years is that we have not seen governments come out of the gate January 1 or whenever the particular regime change occurs in that country and try to enact prohibitions or otherwise squash the growth of the asset. I think that's probably starting to change, particularly here in the U.S. and particularly as increased prices and volatility swings attract the attention of regulators. But look, that's where we're headed. The days of you can't stop Bitcoin, it's a honey badger. Those days are over. Like
you're saying our memes are useless here, huh?
What's that?
Our memes are useless here, is what
yeah,
you're
your
saying.
memes have no power here in 2021. It's just not the case. To think that nothing can stop Bitcoin is naive and childish. This is you've heard that expression, you know, first, what is it? First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. We are squarely entering the then they fight you phase. And if it's a fight, that means you can lose.
Wow. Throwing out the gauntlet early, Marco, with the big predictions.
I'm coming in hot this morning.
Well, let's keep it on the regulatory beat, right? Stablecoins, breakout year in 2020. The crypto market largely still functions. A lot of the trading pairs for the many cryptocurrencies in this market still powered by this new technical innovation. We can create new types of cryptocurrencies that mimic the prices of other more traditional assets. What does this mean for 2021? Marco, let's keep it with you.
Look, we saw an assault on stable coins here in the U.S. Not a particularly strong one. More of a disgruntled run, a disgruntled one, a pot shot even in the Stablecoin Act, Rochard Tlaib's Stablecoin Act, which was just by way of background, the Stablecoin Act sought to prohibit all stable coins unless they were issued by a bank, a federally chartered bank, specifically for whatever reason. It was pitched by the Congresswoman as an attempt at serving the unbanked, the underbanked, the most vulnerable among us. You look at the draft of the bill, it obviously does nothing of the sort. And if you look at the people who drafted it, you read their work in the past, it's very clearly an attempt to curtail what they believe to be shadow banking. It is a highly niche, very specific sort of attempt to create more stability, to centralize risk in this country in national banks, so that progressives or other folks in government who have authoritarian streaks can control it, which is their means for protecting potentially the underbanked or the most vulnerable among us. But the idea behind the bill is to centralize control over stable coins into regulatable entities like banks.
Interesting. So we've got to move there to try to exert some influence on the market. Nelson, maybe you can comment on how that market is developing. You know, stablecoins perceived as really a breakout technology this year. What's their place in the market in the year ahead?
I think two things for stablecoins. Number one is that they're very functional. I mean, you don't have to go and beg a bank to move your money. You know, and as running the OTC desk, that's great for us because we can move stuff between exchanges, move stuff to clients. And not, within a few minutes. And the second part of stablecoins is like it's a gateway drug to Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's kind of high hurdle to understanding, grasping, And when you use stable coins and say, oh, okay, wait a minute, I want to just send some money to somebody. Wow, this worked pretty nice. It's kind of, you start looking at other things, and Bitcoin's the next step in that. So for me, there's two things. I mean, stable coins are just too functional. They work too well. I mean, you look at what's happening. What's happening with USDT is, I mean, it's expanding every day. And for me, it's just too functional to stop. I mean, there's people like using them, and it helps.
Well, let's throw it to our lead Bitcoin strategist. Nelson is saying too functional stable coins. They're the gateway to the crypto asset ecosystem. Aren't they keeping us reliant on the US dollar and this antiquated fiat mechanisms? What do you see in the year ahead, Pierre?
Yes, so I think that when we think about the competition in the market for monies, how that manifests itself is really about liquidity. And Bitcoin USD liquidity, to me, is kind of the most important liquidity pool, because the US dollar today is the global reserve currency. And so I really think that's the main event, right? The match of the evening. And, you know, close second is Euro BTC as well. But I think that the Stablecoin Act, but also just more broadly, the concerns about shadow banking. I'm an accountant by training. And when I hear these concerns, I'm hearing someone express that they don't want anyone to create liabilities unless the Federal Reserve has written them permission, or that there's prior restraint on issuing liabilities. And the reality is that businesses across the economy, small, medium, and large, are constantly issuing liabilities, whether it's accounts payable or any other kind of liability, and that there needs to be. Well, anyway, I won't go into the act because, as Marco mentioned, it's not getting passed anyway. So.
All right, switching topics here. As of today, there are 30, quote, unicoin crypto assets worth more than $1 billion. So that's what the market we look at the end of 2020. Is the long-term trend for more cryptocurrencies or more crypto assets or less? Pierre, let's keep it with you.
I think there's always going to be more. I think that the world of crypto assets is one of superabundance. You can start your own coin, change a few lines of code, or you can just completely rewrite the whole system and, launch your own thing. And that's the beauty of the free market, right? There's just no barriers to entry for launching these coins. Modulo some regulatory concerns maybe Marco could talk about. But that to me is the environment in which Bitcoin thrives. Is the free market, is competition, it's price discovery, because ultimately, just like in the art world, for example, art is abundant. People are creating new art every day. My 3-year-old son creates art. But that doesn't mean all art has value, or that all art is going to, sell for $450 million at Christie's, right? It's not a Leonardo da Vinci. And so the crypto market has that same kind of differentiation, where Bitcoin has emerged as the reserve currency of crypto. People really do use it as a unit of account, even in their trading, right? They'll denominate in sats. They'll use it as a store of value, as a flight to safety asset, a safe haven. And they'll also use it as a medium of exchange, right? When we look at the amount of transactions between exchanges on the Bitcoin blockchain, it's enormous, and it's a large amount of value. So I'll let other guests chime in on that.
Let's turn it over to Nelson, our resident trader. 7,000 cryptocurrencies, I think, was the latest count that I saw on CoinMarketCap. These are all innovations. These are all things that traders want to trade. How do you look at this steadily expanding list of logos and crypto asset tickers?
I mean, it's easy to create these things, as Peter as mentioned before, but it's ultimately. I think you're not going to see these things take off like they were before. Like, you have Dogecoin that started off as a joke and is out there and is still functioning, but you're not going to get too many of those jokes that stick around. So although the amount of coins will likely continue to increase because you get people always trying to do something new, I think the unicorns that you kind of focus on, those are going to be, I think, less and less. I think you're going to see us consolidate around probably 15, 20, 30 projects that actually have some interesting nuances to them that might take off. But these other ones, the Max Kaiser coins of the world, I don't think you're going to see those. And if you do, it's just going to be a joke, and they're not going to get any value to put to them.
Pierre sees abundance. Nelson sees contraction. Marco.
I'm surprised, Nelson. That is remarkably elitist of you. I thought that I thought that you would be a May a Thousand Flowers Bloom kind of guy, just like me. I believe we're only at the beginning of this. I think that what we're seeing is the tokenization of nearly everything out there. Not everything is going to be an investment grade asset. We're going to see weird creatures that have different uses and different functions, and this is a new medium. It is a medium, just like clay was a medium, just like steel is a medium, just like packets are most recently in human history a medium. Tokens, the tokenization and the easy and liquid representation of value is a new era, and I think that we're going to. This is only the very beginning, the very first trickles of a tsunami.
Interesting. I want to switch it over to the macro context, something we've touched on but haven't talked about directly, and then also, of course, the extreme volatility we can see within cryptocurrency markets, right? So riding high at $23,000 right now for Bitcoin. At some points this year, that was below 4,000, most notably during the Black Thursday price event. What did we learn from this? Is this what we see ahead? Is 2021 going to be marked by similar volatility? Are we always going to see volatility in cryptocurrencies? Do we have to live with this? Nelson, I'm curious for your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, for Bitcoin, I mean, ultimately, when we get to a certain price, we're not going to see that volatility as we get higher and more adoption, and there's more buyers and sellers globally. I think volatility will reduce. In fact, we've seen, before this FOMO, we saw volatility kind of dropping across Bitcoin. But overall, I mean, I think some of these new projects that come out, and you're going to still see, they're going to be days that they're going to be, moving 300%, and then days that the legs get taken out of them and they collapse. So, I think Bitcoin volatility will continue to kind of be more subdued over time. But some of these other assets that come out of the blue and start trading, I think you're going to see. I mean, it's just part of the beast. It's a nascent market. That Thursday, I think we all learned a little something different. As an OTC desk, for instance, we learned that you can't mess around with counterparty risk, because we saw a couple of counterparties kind of blow up. So you could end up getting stuck holding the bag when those things happen. So we're a lot more concerned about counterparty risk after that. So I think everybody could learn a little bit new from it.
I think we also learned that this market is still connected or influenced by the macro traditional financial world. Pierre, what was your takeaway from the extreme volatility we saw? Is this a sign that we are still sort of, going to be, influenced by what's happening within the larger traditional economy?
Yeah, so I think that anytime there's going to be a dollar liquidity crisis, that people are going to want to sell any assets that are not dollars because they have dollar denominated liabilities that they need to settle. So that's going to continue to be the case for Bitcoin and for equities and for any other asset that's not dollars. Until we stop having dollar liquidity crises, right? Until we don't have cash flow problems in the economy. And I think that the volatility is going to continue for the foreseeable future because Bitcoin is a fixed supply asset. So there isn't any one entity that can just enter the market and try to stabilize the market either by creating more Bitcoin or by taking Bitcoin out of the market. And it's very decentralized, right? There's a lot of different buyers and sellers. They have different balance sheet situations. What we're seeing is folks entering this space who have very large balance sheets, much bigger than Bitcoin itself, right? So if you've got a $500 billion balance sheet, you have a balance sheet that is bigger than Bitcoin. I think, Nelson, what is Bitcoin's market cap right now? 250, 300? It changes every minute. And so as these large players come in, I think that they could help stabilize the price, but only up. And so that's they're not interested in selling because they're holding for, some of them are really have like 50-year holding periods, right? They're not interested in just getting in and out of positions on a daily basis.
So it sounds like, Pierre,
yeah.
you're saying the days of extreme volatility
downwards.
numbered.
The ones downwards, really. I mean, I think this is number go up technology, first of all, but also that if you have players who can immediately transfer $5 billion to...
Pierre, did you just say this is number go up technology?
Correct. That's the underlying technology of Bitcoin.
It's not blockchain or DLT. It's number go up technology.
That's
Marco,
correct.
let's stick it with you. Let's dig into that. What's behind your reaction there?
I'm not interrupting. I mean, I'm not interrupting because I disagree, even though I do disagree. That was phenomenal, and that deserves to be enshrined in crypto social media history. No, I disagree completely. Everybody listen to the lawyer talk about market volatility. I mean, take it with a grain of salt and what have you, but look, Bitcoin is one of those few assets whose supply does not increase when demand goes up. Like if you're out there selling turnips and the price of turnips goes up, you're going to start making more turnips and selling them in the market, right? That doesn't happen with Bitcoin. Every 10 minutes, we get the same number of Bitcoins until the 4-year halving occurs. But it's also the case on the other side. When supply goes down and you're selling turnips, you don't plant a lot of turnips next season, right? It doesn't happen with Bitcoin's fixed supply. And so there are no external, there are no market factors that are going to act to cushion volatility. And I got to tell you, I have been in enough board meetings to know that when a corporation buys a risky asset, there is always some hero in the room that raises his or her hand and says, we need to sell a little bit of this right now. Or shouldn't we be buffing up a little bit on this asset? It happens not because of rational market theory. It happens because there are individuals in the room who are swayed by any number of individual factors. And I think that we're going to see continued volatility. But man, number go up technology is just a massive force in the right direction. I agree.
Well, we've learned that Bitcoins are not turnips, I guess, if anything, from that conversation. So want to keep the energy hot here. I'll be honest, had a bunch of questions about technology. I think we're going to skip over it. I think people want us to get right to the forecasts, the big predictions. 2021, it's a new year. Everything's different. Everything's the same. Going to go into some questions here and try to leave some room at the end for the great questions pouring in from the attendees. Forecasts. What is your biggest worry about crypto in the year ahead? Marco, let's stick with you.
Regulation. Like I said, coming into this, if you think, oh, the genie's out of the bottle, the toothpaste is out of the tube, Bitcoin is a honey badger, it can't be stopped, Bitcoin is anti-fragile, that is childish. That is naive. That comes from folks who have no experience with the long arm of the law and the long arm of governmental policy, particularly around monetary policy. These people do not care about number go up technology. They don't even care about the public good. They care about protecting their institutions and working for the benefit of their constituents as they define those constituents. We are going to see concerted efforts to rein in the negative effects of crypto. And just like any other technology, number go up or otherwise, it has negative effects and effects that certainly regulators and legislators will perceive to be negative. And we are going to see them flexing their muscles in 2021. And if there's anything that's going to cause them to do that. It's going to amplify their efforts in that regard. It is headlines around the number going up. This does not come at a good time. There is never a bad time for the price of Bitcoin to go up, but there's never a good time anyway, unless maybe Congress is out of session. So.
Well, let's stick on that subject. I'm curious for Pierre's reaction. Pierre, Bitcoin, a network of sovereign nodes. These are people who are running technology that we've been told, can withstand or will want to withstand a government overreach like that. What's your take?
I definitely agree with Marco that there are quite a few governments that are going to not be constructive on crypto. I also think that there are governments who are going to be constructive on crypto. Because they have more to gain than to lose, right? It's kind of simple math. And that if we look at the news that came out with, large institutional players entering into crypto, accumulating hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, I think that is the tip of the iceberg, and that eventually what we're going to see is sovereign wealth funds accumulating Bitcoin. And we'll see energy countries further entering Bitcoin mining. Right now, there's just Venezuela, but we'll eventually start seeing countries like Saudi Arabia, like Russia, at a state level, on a sovereign level, financing extensive Bitcoin mining facilities so that they can have hard currency, right? Whenever the ruble has a currency crisis, the Russian central bank has to have currency reserves in order to stabilize their exchange rate. And they're going to want Bitcoin to be a part of that mix. They certainly don't just want US dollars, right? Because then they're at the mercy of the feds. But then they also don't necessarily want gold, right? Gold is old. So what they're going to want is Bitcoin. And, that's everywhere from Russia, but also, Singapore or even here in the United States. Currently, the federal government owns $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. Hopefully, we continue to have that be the case. But that's the current state of play in the United States. Is the U.S. federal government is a large holder of Bitcoin today.
Pierre, let's stay with you. Biggest worry for the year ahead?
Biggest worry is that we see large players enter this space who just don't care about price, in the sense that they'll buy at any price. And so that would, I think, not be good, in the sense that I love the small retail. I want there to be, mass adoption, the bottom 99%, adopting Bitcoin. But the reality is that Bitcoin is permissionless. So I can't stop these trillion-dollar institutions or these ultra-high net worth individuals from sitting in the order book and just scooping up billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin.
Nelson, someone who looks a lot at order books, biggest worry for the year ahead, is it that these funds are going to change the market dynamics of our industry?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to answer a question Pierre had earlier. Last night we broke 400 billion market cap. It's well above that now. So, some fireworks are due. In terms of what the fear, and I do think regulation is going to be a problem, and I think Marco is right. But where I disagree is that I don't think that Bitcoin was designed so it couldn't be stopped, and I think that ultimately the authorities can do something to the price. So can they come in and ban Bitcoin, and Bitcoin drops to $8,000 from where we're at 23 now? It's very possible. And I think that war is coming. But just like prohibition, I think that, it's going to be some great advertising for Bitcoin, and people across the world are going to say, you know what, it's US regulation, screw it, we're going to use Bitcoin. So I think it'll make a dramatic comeback after they do that. It might take months, might take years, but Bitcoin's not going to be dead. They can't kill it. And ultimately, it'll fight back and it'll win.
That war is coming. Big words. All right, let's stick on the forecasts. Nelson, let's stay with you. What will be most different about the crypto market in 12 months?
I think you're going to see a lot more institutions coming in. And, this whole, we spoke for years about institutions, I remember talking to Pierre about it back in 15, 16 about, institutions coming, and we've been waiting. But I think the tide has turned on that. And I think, institutions are coming, and they're going to come. And I think hopefully they'll help with regulation too. I think that once, these things hit some of these big money manager portfolios and grandma and grandpa have money in it, it's going to be pretty hard to put a beating on Bitcoin. So I hope that happens.
Well, of course, today we've got the price going up. We've got some savvy institutions coming in early. We've got, obviously a fervent market of Bitcoin supporters and crypto enthusiasts. Marco, what will be the biggest difference with the crypto market in 12 months' time?
I think we're going to see a bifurcation between the haves and the have-nots globally in crypto. I think that we're going to see wealthy Western countries move to a more financialized Wall Street-like regime, regulatory regime that intermediates transactions and makes it very difficult for funds to flow into and out of regulated systems, thereby creating a bunch of, wealthy Northern Hemisphere, Western world economies in crypto, and bifurcating the global South, the Far East, Middle East, into a self-custody model, into a model that permits self-custody and permits funds to flow into and out of intermediated organizations and regulated organizations. To self-custodied wallets and from hosted wallets, for example, in a more free way than you'll see in the West, and that will be because of governments trying to control these negative effects that they perceive from crypto, and causing a dramatic stratification between rich and poor. It's sort of a tale as old as time, but that's what I think we're almost certain to see start to develop in 2021.
Interesting. A bifurcation of crypto markets, a haves and have-nots. Pierre, your biggest worry or what will be most different, I guess, about the market in 12 months?
Well, we already did the biggest worry, and I was worried the price would go up too quickly. And so the for what I think is going to be great in 2021. On the regulatory side, what I'd really I'm hoping for, let's put it that way, is that there is a groundswell of bipartisan support for crypto coming from first of all, the people, right? That's what this government is about. It's of the people, for the people. And that we communicate with our elected representatives so that they understand what the people's policy preferences are, and that those elected representatives are able to make the necessary amendments to the laws so that regulators are bound to serving the people, right? And that's to me what the founding fathers intended when they created this country. And obviously, we're all humans and everything's flawed. But I moved here from France. I'm a naturalized citizen, and I've stayed here because I really believe in the United States and the principles it's founded on. Even when the United States has fallen short of those principles, and we know it has throughout its history. But ultimately that good prevails. And I'm hopeful that in 2021 we build a grassroots lobby, to really make sure that the government represents us.
Moving to the next question, I'm going to stick with you, Pierre. This is a two-parter. You get to choose. So what is one crypto trend that will totally disappear in 2021, but that was dominant in 2020? Or what is one under-the-radar 2020 development that you think will be massive in 2021? One or the other.
Okay, so I think that the Bitcoin Lightning Network is going to be massive in 2021. And that it's been a little under the radar as of late, but I think that there's a number of different factors, conspiring to bring Lightning to the forefront next year. One is that, we started out with, let's say, 3-day settlement. And Bitcoin and crypto more widely brought that down. So with Bitcoin, it's 30 minutes, right? With Lightning, we're bringing it down to instant. So instant settlement is incredibly attractive to traders who value speed, and quite a few traders do value speed. And then the other part is lower fees, right? And so with Lightning, we're going to be able to drop down the withdrawal fee on Bitcoin to almost nil. It'll be a fraction of a penny. So that combination, I think, is going to create a lot of value for users, and it's going to be very popular in 2021. And so we'll see a lot of growth in the Lightning ecosystem.
Nelson, Pierre identifying a trend there, saying that Lightning Network is underhyped, could have a big 2021. Is there, same question to you, is there a trend that you saw as being overhyped in 2020 that will be, come to fruition in 21? Or is there some under the radar development you're watching that will be massive in 2021?
I tend to agree. I think Lightning is something that's going to be very important. I mean, there was the big debates of the past couple of years ago where there, transactions are more important than store of value. And now I think we've come to prove that store of value is much more important. But we're going to start making that transition, and Lightning is the rail to do that. So I agree with Pierre. I think he's spot on that. I think that, once this becomes, because Bitcoin is still hard to use, and I think that Lightning is going to make it easy to use. And that's going to be huge for this whole ecosystem.
Echoing that, Marco, it was an overhyped, underhyped trend that you think will dramatically change in 2021.
Still a little controversial, but I'm willing to lay it out. I think DeFi is still underhyped. I think it is still underhyped. I think DeFi summer was a blip, like that summer that news from Cyprus raised Bitcoin's price and it went to $260 or something, if that's the right bubble I'm thinking of. I've been doing this for too long, but I think that's what DeFi summer is going to look like versus the Bitcoin of today, right? I think that as governments continue to squeeze centralized intermediaries like us, like Kraken, like other exchanges all around the world, like other custodians all around the world, I think that the importance of decentralized finance, of DEXs, of decentralized exchanges, will continue to rise. And I think that they'll become, and as the technology becomes more and more sophisticated, becomes more practical and easier to use, I think that they're going to be a bastion for folks who were never going to use centralized exchanges to begin with, and certainly aren't going to use them now because of the crazy restrictions put upon them, which is obviously really bad for law enforcement, but it will be law enforcement's doing anyway if those effects take hold. So I think that in terms of market outlook, I don't tell people to buy particular crypto coins, but man, if you can get long on decentralized exchange coins, on DeFi coins now, that's just kind of a no-brainer from my perspective, in terms of the macro shift around regulation and the market effects it's going to cause over the next year.
Interesting. Well, let's lean in on DeFi. We have narratives, I would say, at the end of 2020, Bitcoin, the store of value, the digital gold, Ethereum, the programmable money, the digital internet. Marco, how does that narrative, in your opinion, change over 2021, or does it?
I don't think it does. I think it's the same narrative. I mean, it's been right. It's been right, and it will continue to be right. I mean, it's certainly, I mean, one of those narratives you picked, right, is the reason why each of us on this panel got into crypto to begin with. But I really do think 1,000 flowers will bloom, and there's going to be a lot of other narratives that develop as well. I couldn't begin to name them, but I will say that you really do have to think of crypto networks not as tokens, but as mediums for for expressing creativity, certainly in economic forms, but in all kinds of structural ways. Look, I was at the forefront of the Cambrian explosion of assets in 2017. I was advising clients on how to legally issue those assets. I saw the great variety of things that came my way and those that passed through the great filter of actually making it out into the market. And there were ideas that were, I think, fabulous, but just weren't supported by the technology then. And we have so much more to work with now. We have so much more of that medium to work with. I think it's only a matter of time.
We've got a few words I want to hone in on. We've got economic creativity around Ethereum. We've got the great variety of crypto assets that inspires. Pierre, I'm going to throw it over to you. Does this narrative emerge that Bitcoin is just a shiny digital rock?
Yeah, so I guess at a high level, I do agree with Marco's view that the narratives of store value for Bitcoin and of DeFi for Ethereum are going to continue into 2021. I think that one trend that we're seeing is that Bitcoin is getting wrapped into Ethereum's DeFi environment, which really to me reflects that Bitcoin continues to be the reserve asset of this space, and it continues to be the premier collateral, right? The pristine collateral. Secondly, that we're going to see technological upgrades to Bitcoin's base layer this year as well. So I believe that we're going to see the activation of Taproot, which is an advanced smart contract system for Bitcoin, and that will create new opportunities for bringing DeFi to Bitcoin rather than bringing Bitcoin to DeFi. So we'll see the emergence of what are called discrete log contracts. So with price oracles, all of this coming onto the Bitcoin blockchain, and also onto Lightning. We'll see Lightning being used for DeFi increasingly in 2021, whether it's with Lightning Labs Pool or with new innovations enabled by Taproot.
I'm curious what our cold calculated trader has to say. Nelson, we've got these two warring narratives here. Bitcoin, the ultimate store of value, the one true money. We've got Ethereum, the programmable money. Everyone gets to make their own 1,000 tokens bloom. Where do you sit?
I sit in the middle in the sense that I think Bitcoin, it's for good reason. It takes time to build on it, and a lot of eyes on it, and we make sure that we don't break it. I think it takes time for innovation. And in that, when you have something that's so important and has that much value, it's better that we take our time and go slow. So, but we need room for innovation as well. And I think a lot of these DeFi projects are just doing just that. I mean, people, don't like banks and how they operate, and they want to avoid them and do things that with their own freedom. And I think that innovation is going to continue. And I think we'll see that in the DeFi products, whether, ultimately Bitcoin becomes those things and we find ways of using Bitcoin in those products. I'm not so sure. I can't see that. Like I'm just a dumb trader trying to make money between, buy and sell at the right prices. But I do think that these DeFi products are, we're going to see a lot of, I do think they're consolidate, and we'll see some that kind of say, wow, this looks like it's going to work. It gives people the ability to do X, Y, Z. Now, whether Bitcoin eventually adopts that and becomes that as well, I don't know. I think, Bitcoin is sacred in the sense that, everything gets valued off of it, and it's the thing that has to work. If that doesn't work, then this whole space collapses. So, so I don't see, I see a bifurcation in the sense that we have this asset that needs to continue to work, and then we have all these other things that are experimenting on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's stick with the forecasts here. So moving to our next subject, we've seen the COVID pandemic play out over 2020. We've seen the government response. So the next forecast here is, what will COVID's lasting impact on both the macro market and the crypto market be in 2021? Nelson, let's stick with you.
So you want a prediction on a price, or?
Just what will the impact be? Will we continue to see that the market will be influenced by what is going on with the pandemic?
I don't think so. I think that, we get the vaccines coming. I think, we'll see once the weather starts getting better, then spring starts coming around, we'll start seeing that, just like any other flu season, we'll get, less of this COVID stuff going on around. So things will be died down. People understand how to protect the vulnerable. Enough vaccines will be out of there. We'll start getting close to herd immunity. The weather's better. I don't think any of that's going to affect the crypto market going forward. People know COVID's here now. The price, there was some volatility around the news of that early on, but now people are learning to live with it and they see the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't think it hurt. I don't think COVID has anything to do with it.
Marco, I'll turn it over to you. Forecasting the year ahead, will we still see the government policy that the markets are impacted by what is going on in the world at large with the pandemic?
I feel like Pierre and I are going to agree wholeheartedly on this one, but we're going to see more market intervention by central banks. We're going to see cheap dollars, cheap euros, et cetera, which, better or for worse, means expensive Bitcoins.
Pierre, do you guys agree?
I do. I think that there's going to be lots more money printing in response to this, and that we're not out of the woods there yet. I also think that as we open back up, maybe that there'll be more spending, and so velocity of money will increase, and we'll actually see consumer price inflation. Because right now, all we see is financial price inflation, right? And so maybe that additionally, with the new incoming administration and the change in the composition of Congress, that going forward, these big packages, stimulus packages, will be going to more people rather than just Wall Street, right? So we'll see how that goes.
Pierre, let's stick with you. How do you define success for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in 2021? What would you hope that the industry accomplishes over the year?
Yeah, six-figure Bitcoin, I think, would be success. And I am encouraging everyone to stack sats and help us get us there.
Marco, how do you define success for the industry in 2021?
Sane, safe regulations from government that will let crypto do its thing, which is to better economies and better American experiences and better experiences of people all around the world in finance.
Nelson, defining success.
Greater adoption. I think, I think that Bitcoin's we're seeing, there's a lot more podcasts out there, a lot more books, a lot more information on Bitcoin. I think there's going to be a lot more that people can grab onto and start understanding what this revolution is about. This adoption.
All right. Running out of time here. Only have a few questions left. I'm going to turn to the audience. So thank you all for typing in your questions and patiently waiting. We have one from an attendee named Pierre. Could you give an overview of your thoughts on central bank digital currencies? Do you see that governments might start actually getting involved in the exploration of digital currencies as a technology through cryptocurrency? Nelson, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, you got to be careful, right? In the sense that, I think that this space started up from the cypherpunks and, libertarian aspect of it. Now, if you start having countries kind of have their own currencies and they can monitor what you're doing with those currency, who owns them, where they're going, what you do, how you're spending your money, they could be very dangerous. So, I think that's something that we have to keep an eye on, because I do think that it's just much more efficient a way for people to, transfer their wealth, but it also could be used by governments to understand what's going on and have information and reduce the populace's privacy.
Got a question here from Hussein. I'm going to throw it over to Pierre. How long will the Bitcoin price movement continue to influence the rest of the crypto market?
Really forever, because it is the reserve currency of the space. And so when we look at the correlations throughout Bitcoin's history, there have been very strong correlations between the rest of the cryptocurrency market and Bitcoin in dollar terms. And that makes sense. And, I would liken it to the same thing with the US dollar and all the other fiat currencies, right? That they are pyramiding off of this one reserve currency. Now, when we do see decorrelations at times, though, right? So some coins have a run, they work their way up the leaderboard, or they fall from grace, right? But so there will always be some movement there. But I really think that Bitcoin's going to continue to really dominate the liquidity in this market.
Question here from Garish. I'm going to turn it to Marco. Will cryptocurrencies go mainstream this year?
No. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. It's not going to happen this year. If by mainstream you mean will everyone have heard of them, I mean that may have already happened. It's tough to, you know, walk down the street, certainly in the Western world, and say, do you know what Bitcoin is? And hear, you know, just baffled noises. I think you still get that in other parts of the world, a little bit more in the Southern Hemisphere, which is kind of unfortunate, really, if you think about some of the benefits that it can bring. But you see a little bit less of that in less liberal governments and less liberal jurisdictions. But I will say that it depends on your definition, right? That's only one definition of mainstream. In the financial world, is it going mainstream? I think we're seeing that happen already. This year, we're seeing incredibly conservative companies allocate to Bitcoin. In terms of new products, mainstream products being built on blockchain technologies, I think that's still a ways off. There's still a major usability issue, and we're very much in the early days of the internet relative to that time, except all the domain names have a price ticker on them.
Interesting. Well, I think we're at the 5-minute mark in terms of time remaining. We've covered a ton of subjects, from markets and macro to technology to forecasts for the year ahead. Want to end it on a big question note, kind of let you guys sum up your thoughts that you've expressed here. What is your boldest prediction for 2021? Nelson, let's start with you.
Boldest prediction for 2021. We see mass adoption from institutions.
Mass adoption. Every institution on Wall Street.
Well, no, in the sense that we get, you know, a lot of more, not just, you know, initially we had, you know, Fidelity involved, and a lot of had to do that because, you know, Abby kind of runs the joint. So she was able to do that. Then we've had a few mavericks come around and say, you know, like Paul Tudor Jones, let's take a swing at this thing. It looks like it's something to get involved with. Then you get some crazy guys like Michael Saylor come around and, you know, say, you know what, I'm going to take my treasuries funds and put it into Bitcoin. I believe in this so much. And now you have people that don't have that type of authority over their own firms, not coming in and putting people's money in it, like Mass Buy. So I think that we can see that, and that can happen very quickly. So a very bullish view of it is that they come in mass. So so that's what I'd say.
Finally, here after all these years, Marco, let's go to you. You've talked a lot about governments, how they might react, put it forward a lot of scenarios. What is your boldest prediction that you have for the crypto market in 2021?
I think we will see a sharp demarcation between the haves and the have-nots in terms of market structure itself. I talked a little bit about this earlier, but really there will be two separate systems. There will be the easy flowing, self-custodied system that exists largely outside of governments, outside of governments' view, and that will exist in the Southern Hemisphere and outside of the Western world. And we will have a much more structured, financialized system in the Western world, in the Northern Hemisphere, that limits the ability of this technology to help those who need it most. It will be created by well-intentioned regulations and government, primarily looking to curb financial crime. But it will have the opposite effect of permitting financial crime to blossom in the dark, in markets that are opaque to law enforcement interdiction, to law enforcement prevention of crime and intelligence gathering. It'll be deeply unfortunate, but it's such is the American way, and in a lot of ways, we will see the forced financialization of the asset. Things that most of us treat as mere commodities will be treated as highly regulated securities. Things that most of us treat as ours and outside of the control of centralized intermediaries will be forced into greater and greater control and scrutiny. And that will not eliminate the technology, it will just cleave it in two. I, for one, am really interested to see what people make of that. I think the technology is resilient. I think people are resilient and they're passionate. It may end up looking something like the drug war, where for many years, at first, cocaine's in bottles of soda, right? And then for a very long time, it's outlawed. It's a scheduled substance. But then people come back around to it, and you start seeing places like Portland where it's legal again. And maybe that will follow that kind of TikTok pattern in crypto as well.
A bleak, bold view for a war on crypto. Pierre, maybe we can end with you. Your boldest prediction, hopefully maybe on a more positive note.
Yeah, it's very bullish. So my boldest prediction is that if we take the S&P 500, the world's largest corporations, I think that by the end of 2021, more than half of them will have Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And I think that will be driven by simple economics, which is that issuing shares to buy Bitcoin causes your stock price to go up more than the dilution, right? And so because that is the case, right? We have market data showing this, that we're going to see, a huge amount of corporate adoption of Bitcoin, and we'll even see, like what Michael Saylor is doing of corporations issuing large, quantities of bonds, fixed income instruments, whether they're convertible or whatever, in order to just bulk buy Bitcoin. And that is my bold prediction.
I want to thank everybody on the panel today. Marco, Pierre, Nelson. Of course, we have this all on video, so we'll be here to review it next year for our 2021 Crypto in Review. So
Wait, this is recorded?
Yes, for posterity. So this has been a special edition. This has been a special edition Kraken webinar. I'm Pete Rizzo, editor-at-large at Kraken, and you can find more videos across our social platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and more, including this video today, which will be up there shortly. So guys, thank you for the predictions. Thank you for your work this year, and excited to see what happens next year. We'll see you next time and next year. For now, happy trading.